You are listening to The Atheist Antidote Show.
And now for a needle of truth in the haystack of lies, another segment of the think tank.
Do you remember Great American Hero?
Yeah.
For the very first episode, the bad guys were these Christian, terrible group of white guys. And they just, almost like Westboro Baptist Church mixed with Nazis. This was the very first episode of Great American Hero, which I got from Netflix. These were the bad guys. And I said, okay. Well, we were looking at 80-something, and that took place. And, of course, in the end, the atheistic scientists come out ahead, and the Christians look like lunatics and admit that they're wrong. I'm just summing up. Now, how many times have you seen a version of this? Now, you got all these years of indoctrination.
Saturation. Yeah, no, it's a great point. I had a similar thought because for a couple months there, my wife and I would just kind of watch an episode of Cheers to wind down at the end of the day.
Cheers?
Yeah, and Cheers is a great show, but, it was in the 80s. They're taking cracks on Reagan all the time, and they're big lefties.
Yeah. Because these people are not waking up, and because they really have been thoroughly indoctrinated for almost like a lab test that's been going on for so many years, Pavlov's dogs, where you ring the bell. The knee-jerk reaction is to blame the Christian conservative for everything. And nobody, bats an eye and thinks that there's anything wrong with that or does any research. Just characterize them as the problem and say, this is what they're doing. And they blame them, and everyone agrees for the most part. And they go and elect Barack Obama again for a second term. The blind devotion, I think, is probably higher than it's ever been. So if something really happened, then I don't think that the outcome of that is all of a sudden these people.
Yeah, I mean, that's another is when it gets painful, they run back to the tormentor. Did you ever hear that story about Stalin? As you're hearing this, I'm thinking of this. I made a YouTube video. It speaks right to what you're saying. Stalin has this famous thing where there was an American reporter around him, and he basically asked the questions we're asking. He said, how long can you torture and starve and just disrespect the humanity of your citizens before you think there's going to be an outcropping? And Stalin didn't say anything to the reporter. He asked his servant or whatever to go get him a live chicken. The servant gets the chicken, brings it back to Stalin. Stalin grabs it by the throat, it against his chest, and starts feathering the chicken right in front of the crowd, yanking the feathers from the chicken's body. The chicken's squawking and agonizing pain. But he puts the chicken down, and the chicken takes a couple steps away. He takes some bread off the table, he puts it in his hand, and the chicken comes back and nestles against his leg and eats from the warmth of his hand. And Stalin goes, people are like this chicken. You torture them, you abuse them, and they will always come back to you for food from your hand. The story, and I said, I hate the fact that there's truth to this. But there are not enough independent spirits sometimes, people who just love liberty. And I think a lot of times Stalin is right. What you're saying is, the stuff hits the fan, and people turn to the perpetrators of the crime. And I have to admit that is a possibility.
I'm saying in a different time with a different group of people who know what it's like to live their whole lives without liberty. That spark inside of them could be enough to change things. That already happened. I'm saying this group now, coming off of the greatest generation to the absurdities that their kids did, to now the insanities that their kids did. And we're like zombies. We're just like zombies. So to expect us to all of a sudden wake up and be like, wait a second, no, this is not Republicans. Democrats not only screw everything up, they lie about screwing everything up. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I can't say that I have any factual evidence to dispute that. It's heartbreaking. You can make the case that they haven't heard it yet. Such an echo chamber.
Yeah. What's true is that they've been taught by their teachers, by their friends.
So online, drawing out all these, different shades and varieties and Crayola color box type of Christians. You know what I mean? And one of the most consistent kinds, which really troubles me, is the just off the crazy cliff conspiracy theory. It just tends to go that way. You know what I mean? I think it's the libertarian leaning, which I relate to. I relate to the gat in my hair, the government's a problem.
They always take it way too far.
Yeah, it just goes, exactly, it's the extreme, like everything can go to an extreme. But then, you become the not purist. You're not the purist. So all of a sudden, they're like unleashing on you. They're kind of preaching to the choir. They're like, I want individual liberty. I want property rights. You're like, I do too. I do too. I just don't believe the government brought down the Twin Towers. What are people considering a conspiracy theory on the left? That's not the litmus test. The litmus is take your own conspiracy and then use the same scrutiny.
You can't watch a video and have your just one 15-minute video and have your whole, or read a few articles on the internet and have your whole mindset developed about this.
It's always the government.
The problem with conspiracy theories is people can't keep secrets. That's the problem with conspiracy theories.
I know. And what life have they lived where people can? Let alone government officials, let alone people who can get paid for this.
Exactly.
Visit the Atheist Antidote YouTube channel and follow him on Facebook and Twitter.